So, how do you stop a government from getting too powerful? Ever think about that? Well, in Malaysia, the answer is actually built right into the very structure of its justice system.
And just so you know, this entire explainer was created by Zurmaznum Senan, who's a senior lecturer over at UITM Johor.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? How do you stop any one person or any one group from getting way too much power? It's a question leaders have been wrestling with for centuries. And Malaysia has a really specific answer baked into its foundations. It's an idea that, honestly, shapes how power works across the entire country. And that answer? It all comes down to a powerful blueprint for balancing power, the doctrine of separation of powers.
Okay, so what is that exactly? The main idea is actually brilliantly simple. You take all the government's power and you split it into three separate, distinct branches. You've got the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. By doing this, by splitting everything up, the system creates this built-in safety net, a check against any one group ever getting absolute control.
Okay, that's the theory. But how does this actually work in the real world? Let's kick things off with the first two branches, the ones in charge of making the rules and then enforcing them. All right, here's a quick breakdown. First up, you have the legislative branch. Think of them as the rule makers, the architects of the country's rule book. We're talking about the federal parliament and the state assemblies. Their main job? To create the laws. Simple enough. But then you've got the executive branch. That's the cabinet and other authorities. They take that rule book and actually put it into action. They're the ones running the government day to day, making sure those laws are enforced.
Right, so you have rule makers and rule enforcers. But what happens when people disagree on what a rule actually means? Or, when someone just straight up breaks a rule? That's where our third branch comes into play, the interpreters, or as we officially call them, the judiciary. And this right here, this is the Palace of Justice. It's pretty much the symbolic heart of the entire Malaysian judiciary. It's inside courts like this where the laws that the legislature passed are actually interpreted, debated, and where they get their real power and meaning. So what's their day-to-day job really like? Well, the civil courts are the absolute workhorses of the justice system. I mean, they handle a massive range of cases. Everything from criminal trials to arguments between two neighbors, and even conflicts between a regular citizen and the government itself. They have something called general jurisdiction, which is just a fancy way of saying they are the go-to courts for most legal problems in the country. But here's the thing. The courts isn't just one big building. Nope. It's a really complex, tiered system. Kind of like a pyramid. To really get how it all fits together, let's take a quick tour of this judicial hierarchy. Okay, so at the most basic level, the whole system is split into two main chunks. You've got the superior courts. These are the big leagues, the highest courts in the land, dealing with the most serious cases and appeals. And then you have the subordinate courts. These are the lower level courts that handled the huge volume of cases at the local level. All right, this chart right here shows you the whole thing, the full hierarchy of the Malaysian civil courts. Let's start our tour at the very top and work our way down. So, sitting right at the peak, the very top of the superior courts, is the federal court. This is the final stop, the ultimate court of appeal in all of Malaysia. Just below that, you have the Court of Appeal. And then things get interesting. Right under that, the system splits into two high courts that have equal power. You've got the High Court of Malaysia for Peninsular Malaysia and the High Court of Borneo covering Sabah and Sarawak. Now, if we follow the lines down from those high courts, we get into the subordinate courts. Here, you'll find the sessions courts and below them, the magistrates courts. This is where most cases actually get their start. And there's one more unique feature, specifically in Borneo, the native court, which handles cases related to native customary law in Sabah and Sarawak.
Okay, so we've seen the blueprint, we've met the key players, but let's get down to it. Why does any of this whole separation of powers thing, actually matter to you and me, the average citizen? Well, it all comes back to that first big question, preventing the abuse of power. This whole system is designed to make sure no single branch can become a dictatorship. Think about it. The legislature can write the laws, but they can't enforce them on their own. The executive enforces the laws, but they can't twist the interpretation to fit their own agenda. And the judiciary? They stand as a powerful, independent check on both of them. This balance, this is the bedrock of what we call the rule of law. It's what holds the whole thing together.
And that leaves us with one last, and maybe most important, question to think about. In our world today, with all its complex laws and powerful governments, does the role of the independent interpreter, the judiciary, actually make it the ultimate guardian of justice and our freedoms? It's definitely something worth thinking about.